everybody, welcome to Comic Tropes. I'm your host Chris, and today we're talking about artist Sanford Greene. Now, Sanford Greene has emerged over the last decade as one of the most distinctive artists working in American comics, at least in my opinion. Known for his fluid line work, expressive characters, as well as a deep engagement with cultural history, Greene represents a generation of creators who blend genre storytelling with personal and historical history. He's worked for major publishers like Marvel and DC, as well as creator-owned projects. But today, I'm going to focus on what I'll argue is his defining achievement thus far, the Eisner Award-winning series Bitterroot, co-created with Chuck Brown and David F. Walker. Through that work in particular, Greene has demonstrated how visual storytelling can simultaneously entertain, educate, and provoke the reader. Folks, please hit like and subscribe. That really helps the channel, helps the stupid algorithm thing. I appreciate it. And without any further ado, let's dive in. Sanford Greene's path into comics includes both formal training and grassroots passion. Raised in Greeleyville, South Carolina, Greene studied art and illustration at Benedict College, one of America's 107 designated historical black colleges or universities, HBCU. In addition to working on comics, he's a professor there now, teaching illustration. There's a great short documentary on him on the YouTube channel HBCU Week Now. Greene's earliest work was at Dark Horse on books like Planet of the Apes and Galactic, with one of his first prominent comics being an issue of Star Wars Tales in 2002. In an interview with Benedict College about his career, he said he figured that was his big break, and he quit his job at Blockbuster Video. But if you look at his bibliography, you can see he still had to grind away at companies like Archie until he got noticed by DC in 2007 and Marvel in 2008. Even then, it wasn't until about 2015 when he began getting series regular work on books like Power Man and Iron Fist. That latter title was especially important as, even though it had a relatively short run, 15 issues, it got him working with writer David F. Walker, and it got noticed by critics. Greene had put in over a decade of work in comics at this point, and had become confident in his style. It showed expressive motion and energetic figure work. It pushed past pure realism and gave the characters personality. This is one of the advantages of comics over live-action film and TV. It allows the artist to convey how a world feels, rather than just showing something real. And not for nothing, but his design of Luke Cage in a yellow and black suit have clearly carried through into the MCU version of the character used in Daredevil Born Again. Luke has always been about making a fashion statement, but it was time to bring him out of his 70s and 90s looks into something more modern. Greene's true breakthrough came with 2018's creator-owned book, Bitterroot, published by Image Comics. Set during the Harlem Renaissance, the story follows the Sangarye family, monster hunters who battle creatures born from hatred and racism called Jinoo. It turns the idea of being a monster inside quite literal, but then it becomes fun because it's all about monster hunters with cool weapons and potions protecting society in secret. It's such a unique blend of action, horror, and cultural history. Greene said to Black Nerd Problems that, quote, "It's like you're bearing your soul to the world." That vulnerability that Sanford Greene is showing in that quote became a driving force behind the book's authenticity. Greene and his collaborators, Chuck Brown and writer David F. Walker, grounded the story in historical research, particularly the cultural and social tensions of the Harlem Renaissance. That is a fascinating point in American history where visual art, theater, fashion, politics all began emerging in the Harlem area in the 1920s and 30s. It's too much to cover here, but it provides a really exciting background for the comic. There was a lot going on that influences the characters. It's full of real conflict. And while I'd been following Sanford Greene's artwork for a number of years, Bitterroot was initially a blind spot for me. I wish I could be one of these guys that say, I discovered it right when it came out. But I didn't. In fact, I found it after I really enjoyed the movie Sinners, and a bunch of friends said, there's a comic book that has some of that same tone. You might want to check out Bitterroot. And since then, I found out that there's some great in-depth reviews by other YouTubers, like Comics Are Dope, Blurred Without Fear. I'm sure there's a number of you. So I'm coming in a little late to Bitterroot, but Sanford Greene I'd been following since Luke Cage and Iron Fist. I gotta say, Bitterroot is incredible. Greene noted that researching the area was both inspiring and sobering. In Bitterroot, Greene integrates visual elements of the Harlem Renaissance. That includes fashion, architecture, musicians. His goal was to create something both unique and authentic, capturing the era's artistic vibrancy while acknowledging its social struggles. This results in a layered visual aesthetic. If I'm allowed to be a little poetic here, there's a jazz age elegance colliding with grotesque monster designs, which visually reinforces the book's themes of beauty and corruption. The concept of Bitterroot, monsters as embodiments of hatred, was rooted in both history and contemporary events. Greene has explained that the idea of the title came from hearing about a bitter root growing and infecting people from a sermon after the 2015 Charleston church shooting, as well as the fact that the Sangarye family uses herbs and potions in their battle with monsters. This thematic ambition elevates the series beyond genre fiction into something more allegorical and socially engaged. Bitterroot has incredible visuals, but it's a very challenging story. It talks about some very unpleasant pieces of American history. We have discussions of sunset towns or the Tulsa Race Massacre, things that were unlikely to get taught in public schools but are a real and sad part of our history. And yet, the Sangarye family spends its time not just hunting monsters, but specifically working with their bitter roots and potions to try to cure those that are filled with hate. It's a very uplifting message. The comic won an Eisner Award in 2020. It was then optioned by Ryan Coogler, director of films like Fruitvale Station, Black Panther, Sinners. Greene's art style is kinetic, expressive, and perhaps most important to this video, stylized. But those terms only begin to capture its complexity. His work blends influences from superhero comics, animation, hip-hop aesthetics, and history into sequential storytelling. Greene has said that some of his first comic influences included guys like Todd McFarlane and Jim Lee, and then he backtracked to their influences like Art Adams and Michael Golden. I think Golden feels like an especially relevant influence when I look at the decisions to shift between realism and cartooning, though all of these artists do stuff like that. Greene's mentioned Saturday morning cartoons, which probably accounts for the choices he makes in representing motion while using animation rules. And he's mentioned hip-hop. He especially mentioned listening to a lot of the late, great MF Doom when he made his incredible Dr. Doom one-shot last year. A truly fantastic piece of art that, wow, what a standout for Marvel. One thing I feel when I read Greene's comics is the particular rhythm that he has. Characters move and snap with exaggerated energy. This creates a rhythm on the page that mirrors action cinema or animation. Rather than adhering to anatomical rigidity, Greene prioritizes flow. Limbs can elongate, poses can distort, and motion lines will guide the reader's eye. Greene's characters are highly expressive, often communicating personality through posture and even their overall design, emphasizing shapes. He's spoken about the challenge of balancing expression with consistency, particularly with characters like Ma Etta, saying that she has to remain regal and stoic while still emotionally dynamic. There's a tension there, a line between caricature and dignity that Sanford Greene balances in his comics. I also want to point out how Greene's panel layouts are dynamic. He frequently breaks traditional grids using angular compositions, restrained choices of when to break panel borders to show depth, and cinematic framing to control the pace the story is read. action sequences feel explosive, while quieter scenes rely on composition and body language to stay engaging. What elevates Greene's work on Bitterroot is not just the visual flair, but how that style serves the story's themes. At its core, I'd argue Bitterroot is about cycles of hatred and also the possibility of healing. The monsters are not simply enemies, they're victims of corruption, often reflecting real-world prejudice and trauma. Greene's art reinforces this ambiguity. Monsters are grotesque, but also tragic. Their designs often retain human elements, reminding readers of what has been lost. The contrast between the vibrant Harlem setting and the horror elements creates a visual metaphor. Beauty and culture exist alongside violence and oppression. Greene leans into this duality. Importantly, Greene's storytelling emphasizes family. The Sangliers are not always a unified group. They disagree on whether monsters should be cured or killed. This ideological conflict is mirrored visually. Characters are often framed in opposition, separated by panel borders, or contrasting compositions. Now, there have been criticisms of Sanford Greene's art. I can speak to you, like I am doing now, about why I appreciate it, but I can't make you like something. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Some can argue his fluid line work makes it visually unclear for them. However, those same qualities are what I'd argue are Greene's greatest strengths. His stylization emphasizes emotions and characters. I feel like it still has plenty of real-world environments that look fantastic and help the characters stand out. The stylization helps the action feel more intense and immersive. Sanford Greene's impact on comics extends beyond his individual comics. As a Black creator telling stories rooted in Black history and culture, he's helped expand the scope of mainstream comics. As a teacher, he's providing future generations of artists with a background to build upon. His work has extended outside of comics as well, in work for companies like Peloton, also films like Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. He did a bunch of designs for that movie. And Bitterroot itself is still going on, but already stands out as a landmark. It's an award-winning series with an all-Black creative team blending genre fiction with historical commentary in a reader-friendly way. Sanford Greene's career illustrates the power of comics as a medium for both artistic innovation and cultural storytelling. It's not work by a massive committee. You get a more singular vision. You get a glimpse behind the scenes of what the creator is about. From Sanford Greene's early work in mainstream superhero books to his breakthrough with Bitterroot, Greene has consistently pushed the boundaries of visual narrative. I think his work is a great blend of style and substance. So at the end of the day, that's just showing the power of comics as an artistic medium. It's my favorite storytelling medium, and I just love seeing when an artist or a writer with a very unique and different sensibility can break through to the mainstream. Very exciting. Folks, definitely recommend picking up Bitterroot. Easy to pick up in trade paperback format. And I also happen to be a fan of the Luke Cage and Iron Fist run that he did. I'd recommend that as well. Thank you so much for watching. I'll give a few behind-the-scenes thoughts over the closing credits, but until I see you for the next episode, keep reading comics. Alright, so last week was Tradd Moore, this week was Sanford Greene. What I'm going to try to do with the show, and we'll see how well it works, I'm going to do little blocks of somewhat similar ideas. And in this one, I'm talking about artists who are mainstream successes, but in my opinion have a very, very standout, unique visual style. And from there, I'm going to talk about some of my favorite Batman artists, do a series on that with some guys that I don't think get talked about enough. Norm Brayfogle, Jim Aparo was one of my favorites. Maybe work in Alan Davis. Anyway, a few of those. And then I've got a series of manga things that I want to talk about. I want to talk about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure and how Hirohiko Araki does really weird things with both poses and fashion. And I've got a few other influential mangaka that I've been wanting to talk about for a while. So I'm going to do sort of like just a series of that, and I always ping pong around in terms of, old, new, mainstream, indie, foreign, and domestic comics. But maybe if I do them in little chunks, it can like build up more of an audience and make people more inclined to try something that they otherwise skip. Because I do get plenty that people skip, and that's fine because it keeps me engaged with my channel and keeps me producing content. I understand that every episode might not initially appeal to everybody, but I do want to really quick ask for a favor, and that is the algorithm is not friendly when you're intermittent or when you jump around in topics. So I don't think the YouTube algorithm honestly recognizes that I'm always looking at comic book technique and history. It's always consistent in that regard. So a lot of people that are even subscribed aren't getting notified. So I would just ask you, consider hitting things like subscribe, the bell to get notified, consider hitting like and leaving a comment, or even sharing it on social media every once in a while if you really liked an episode. Those are all things that really help the algorithm, and so just asking for a small favor there. Thanks so much for watching. See you real soon.